Listening is the process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to spoken and nonverbal messages. Let's use this working definition as a starting point for this screencast on listening. Specifically, what are we going to cover? We're going to look at social decentering and the benefits of good listening. We'll look also at the components of the listening process and how scholars tend to compartmentalize different parts of listening. Next, I hope that you'll be self-reflecting and examining your own barriers to the listening process. We'll also look at academic listening, how to do it in the classroom, how to do it effectively, and how important it is. Lastly, don't forget, take notes, pause the screencast. Most importantly, tweet ideas. I'm always curious about how students pick and choose ideas and tweet them out, and use any of the hashtags that you see listed here. Off we go. Social decentering. This is a great starting point for understanding listening. What is social decentering? I'll read this definition and then talk about it in more detail. The cognitive, mental process of suspending one's words, thoughts, and actions to take into account another person's words, thoughts, values, backgrounds, actions, and perspectives as you interact with this person. Basically, social decentering means suspending self and really focusing on the other person. And you fully prioritize the other person's ideas, words, actions, values, and deprioritize yourself, what you're thinking, your emotions, your reactions. And so if you truly listen, you're trying to apply this concept of social decentering so that you fully understand the speaker. The last bullet says that the ability to listen has great benefits, both relationally, building relationships, understanding content, and lastly, professional benefits. Studies show over and over that one of the number one qualities of group leaders, leadership in general, managers, is effective listening. So if this is a skill that you can nail down, it's very likely that you can be or increase your chances of being more successful professionally. A couple other studies. A 1999 Wall Street Journal study showed that one of the reasons top workers were held back in the executive and management field was ineffective listening. And other studies in the medical field show that doctors who are not fully trained in effective listening tend to let their biases and perceptions influence how they make decisions about the patient's medical care rather than fully listen to what's going on. These doctors without this training tend to jump to conclusions prematurely. And so again, you can see that there's a lot of professional benefits to really trying to practice this skill of effective listening. And it all starts with social decentering. Let's look at the stages of listening. You see 5 stages. I think what's most important about these stages is that this is something scholars do to make the listening process more understandable. But listening is not quite as easily compartmentalized as these diagrams make it look to be. All these stages happen simultaneously. They go back and forth. So the arrows, even though they're moving clockwise and it's in a nice pattern, listening doesn't happen this way. And also, at any of these stages, listening can take a wrong turn. If we refer back to those bifurcation moments, they happen in this process, and you can look at these stages and say, where did the communication go wrong? Did I receive and listen and hear appropriately? Did I understand the message and what was being said? Did I remember it accurately? Am I prejudging or bringing biases? And how am I responding to solicit more information about what the speaker is saying? So let's look at these stages of listening. First is beginning. How do I attend, receive, and listen to the person effectively? Number one, remember that communication is about a package of messages. So that means focus on both what is said and focus on what the body, face is also saying. It's a package. A lot of times I'm seeing a lot of people nowadays just focus with the ear and their eyes are on something else. And there are a lot of different barriers that people can have that can distract them from focusing on that full package. One being your own self-barriers, inattentive type, spacing out, psychological noise, information barriers. I don't understand. So frustration sets in or we tend to tune out. Context barriers. Who heard the backfeed the other night on the mic from the guest speaker? So that was a contextual barrier. Maybe it's too dark. Maybe something doesn't quite fit into the context. And lastly, electronic device barriers. Do you have these? And if you do, try to minimize your eyes on your electronic devices as people are talking to you. Also, attend to the immediate message and don't anticipate what they're going to say or prejudge or draw conclusions or assumptions. In this stage, you're really just trying to receive in an open-minded way. And lastly, don't interrupt the speaker. Cut them off. Say what's on your mind. Spew out something. Just try to close your mouth and take in the full package of what is being said. Next, understanding. 4 tips on really fully understanding what is being said. First, use your schema and connect new to old. So how does this information fit in with what I already know? That will help you more fully understand what you're listening to, and it's a very useful academic strategy. Next, attempt to see things from the speaker's point of view. This is that other orientation that we've been talking about, social decenter. See it from their perspective. Next, ask questions, basic questions. Draw more out of what the speaker is saying. And lastly, try to paraphrase. We'll do an exercise in class on paraphrasing, and it's a really great strategy to help you know if you understand because you put what you hear in your own words. Remembering. One key way to remember what you're hearing is to try to see if you can identify patterns. Is there some sort of organizational pattern? We tend to summarize important details, taking notes, repeating names over and over. When someone's introduced to you, say nice to meet you, insert the name, and you can repeat those. And you're really trying to retain and remember what the speaker is saying and focus your energy and your mental state on that rather than what your reaction is. The next stage is evaluating. Here's my general rule. Don't. Resist evaluation in most interpersonal settings just to really try to fully understand the speaker's point of view. I'm not a big proponent of judging others. So if you can resist that evaluation at all, do it. Also, assume goodwill in the speaker. Give them the benefit of the doubt rather than assume they're lying or you don't like them or making judgments. Another important thing when we critique is distinguish what is fact, what is observed, what the person saw, versus what is inferred, what is opinion. And so you can think about those 2 different types of statements as you evaluate. Next, identify any of your own self-biases, prejudices, stereotypes, your background knowledge that may influence what the speaker is saying. And so if you can do that, that's good meta communication in terms of self. How am I influenced by what I already know in hearing the speaker, and try to put that aside. Here's 4 key listening barriers. First is the physical and mental distractions. Physical distractions. Technology is the number one criminal distraction for people listening. And then mental distractions. My ADD people, or anyone and everyone, has some sort of attentional challenges. Your own bias and prejudices. That's another major listening barrier. Do you bring biases? Do you form opinions? Do you have prejudices when you listen to others? And then do you take that to the next level and interrupt and sedate them and need to get them off your chest? If you're doing that, that's a major barrier to listening. Lack of appropriate focus. You can identify if you're focusing in on the speaker or not, and then premature judgment. Can you identify which ones of these you fall victim to and start to think about how you change them? Last slide, listening in the classroom. First of all, prepare yourself to listen every class. Walk into that class and say, what's in it for me? What's this professor going to teach me today? What can I gain out of this class? Give me a takeaway from this class. Every class, prepare yourself mentally to listen. Next, avoid distractions in the classroom. Don't sit next to your friends that will distract you. Find a place that you can lock in. Put away any other distractions, windows that are open, Facebook, email, cell phone. Put away anything that's going to divert your attention from the message being sent by the professor. Pay attention to introductions, the agenda. This will preview what is going to cover. A lot of times professors give away essay questions, or it gives you the template, the organization of the lesson that day. Next, the number one indicator for college students' success is note-taking. Take copious notes. Work on that skill. It's also the number one most challenging study skill for college students. But if I were to make a judgment about you and your success as a college student, I would go around and look at your notes. What do they look like? How complete are they? How thorough are they? Are you revising them? Are you pulling out questions? Are you making visuals? Your notes are critically important to good listening in the classroom. Assume relevance and intention versus assuming this isn't important or I have no purpose. And listen for understanding, which means question, answer, format, main idea, detail, and try to quiz yourself on it. Take these listening behaviors into your classroom and you will be a successful student. Let's recap. We learned about social decentering. We talked briefly about the components of the listening process. We discussed the barriers, and I asked you to select your barriers and maybe consider what they are, how you're going to change them, and make some listening goals. And we looked at academic listening. How'd you do with notes? Maybe you bang out a tweet, and most importantly, self-reflect at this point. What are your downfalls in the listening process? In what ways are you a strong listener? So what strengths do you bring? And you can set 3 goals as a listener based on what you've heard and the work we're doing in class on listening.